Hey everybody, JR from JR's Cars here, and today we're going to be replacing the water pump and the thermostat on the Pontiac. So stay tuned and I'll show you how to get this done. So like I said, today we're working on the Torrent. We're going to end up replacing the water pump and the thermostat. I went to go take the car out the other day and it started overheating on me, and it never did that before. So just for safety measures, the car's got almost 202,000 miles on it. I couldn't tell you if the thermostat or the water pump have ever been replaced. And honestly, they were fairly cheap. I think the water pump was like 50 bucks, something like that. And the thermostat was like $6. So it's just good preventative maintenance to get done. So let's get at this. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to take off the airbox. I'm going to take off the top cover. I'm going to remove all this stuff over here just so we can get to it, because the water pump is right over here. So you have your water pump housing and you have your water pump pulley. And in a second, I'll show you what the actual water pump looks like, because it's pretty deceiving. It's not what you think it would be. One thing to note on the water pump is that this gasket only goes one way. If you were to try to take this gasket, see how everything looks like it lines up? If you try to spin it to the next hole over, you're going to see that the lines, the bolt holes, don't line up. So you have to make sure when you're putting this gasket on, and when you go to replace it, that you put it in the correct orientation. Otherwise, you're never going to get that gasket on, and you're never going to be able to get this thing to seal up properly. Okay, so now that I got the top cover off, basically all you have to do is just take the EGR cable out of it, and then the entire top pops up. What you want to do is you want to take the rest of this off here. So there's a clip here, there's a clip back here for the airbox. You want to take this screw out of the accordion, and then you'll move this right out of the way, and then I'll show you the bottom airbox and how to get that out of there too. All right, so that's out of the way. Take your air filter out, put it off to the side, and then this airbox comes out simply by this 10mm bolt here, which we'll just take that. And it pulls right out. Set that to the side, and then this is what we're after. Right down here is the water pump. What you want to do is these 4 bolts have to come out. So what you have to do, because these 4 bolts have to come out because this pulley is going to come off that way. So what you need to do is crack these loose while the belt is still on, so that way it'll be easier to take these off when you get everything loose. You'll crack these off, you'll take the belt off, and then we'll pull the pulley off, and then that'll give you access to the actual water pump itself and the bolts that hold it into the housing. So I'm going to crack these loose, I'll get the belt off, and then we'll come back. All right, so if you haven't seen my video before about replacing the tensioner and the belt, take a look at the top of the video there. I'll have a link to it there too. But this is one of the tools that I had purchased just to get that tensioner off. It's a really great tool. I had to shape it a little bit. I had to bend it so it would fit in here to where I can get that tensioner loose. So I'm not going to bore you with that. If you want, you can watch the other video and you can see how to take how to break the tensioner tension on the belt to remove the belt. But I'm going to do that right now. All right, so now we're at the point where we're going to take this off. I got the bolts out already, you can see. So what we're going to do is either you need to get a small pry bar or just a screwdriver, something along those lines, and then you're going to push between the pulley and the water pump housing just to get the pulley off. Now there may be a little bit of a rust ring right around the center here. This is the water pump and this is the pulley. You might want to put a little penetrating oil in here just in case. This one doesn't look that bad, so we'll try and see if we could just pry it off without needing that. And Okay, cool. Looks like we're good to go. All right, so this is your water pump. What you're going to want to do now is all these bolts that are around the side. I think there's either 5 or 6 of them. I think there's 6. But these are all 8mm bolts. You don't want to take those out. But before you take these out, you want to make sure that you have a pan down below to catch the antifreeze that's going to drop out of here. That is exactly why I say to make sure that you have a bucket underneath it. So, looking at the water pump here, it actually looks like it's in pretty decent shape. So that more than likely might not be our problem. I'm going to replace it anyway. It's a consumable part. It was cheap. It's well worth it in the long run. Alright, so if you take a look in here, you'll see that there's some gasket material. And there's some sealant that's on there too. What you want to do is just take a little bit of emery cloth, scrape off the gasket there, and clean up the mating surface really good so you get a good nice seal on it. Alright, so the water pump's all back in, and I have it all sealed up and ready to go. These are tightened down. You don't want to over torque them. But one thing to note too is how I was showing you, with the bosses and everything else to show the orientation of the water pump. You can see right there, there's a little arrow. As long as that arrow is pointing up, you're in the right orientation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the pulley back on there. I'm going to put the belt back on. We'll get this side squared away. So now I got the belt and everything put back together. And again, if you need to get the belt diagram, we'll put that right here. So at this point, you want to make sure that now that the belt is tight, you can actually tighten these 4 screws down. Don't forget to tighten those down, otherwise this pulley is going to end up wobbling and you're going to have a hell of a time. It's good practice for you to put a little bit of Loctite on the bolts just so they don't work themselves back out. So now, at this point, we're going to go over and we're going to go do the thermostat. Okay, so now that the hard part is done with the water pump, the easiest part is to replace the thermostat. This is your new thermostat here. Comes with your seal, right? So this right here, this housing, you might not be able to see it behind the, there we go. That's a little bit better. This housing right here is where the thermostat is, right? So these are 13mm bolts. There's one here, and then what you're not able to see is there's another one down in the bottom here. This one's easy. You can get to that one with a regular ratchet. The other one you're going to have to get to with a wrench because you're not going to have enough room between the housing and the exhaust crossover here to be able to get to it. So we'll take these 2 out. We'll take this housing off. We'll get to the thermostat and replace that. And then, like I said earlier, you want to make sure that your pan is underneath because you're going to lose coolant. And you want to make sure that anything that's dropping down is getting caught in your pan. All right, so you got those 2 screws, the 2 bolts out. Just move this out of the way, and this is what you're left with, right? This is where your thermostat is right here. So that will just pull right out, and if it doesn't, you might have to just get a little screwdriver in there and kind of pry it out a little bit. It might be stuck in there. Okay, so it definitely looks like it's been in there for a while. You can tell by all the corrosion and how crappy that seal looks there. So it's cheap insurance. Like I said, if this fixes the problem, great. If it doesn't fix the problem, then we move on to plan Q. But it's cheap insurance. Like I said, it's about $6-7, something like that. So it's worth it. Might as well change it. What you definitely want to do is you want to get in here. You want to try to clean up this mating surface here, just so you have a nice, good, clean surface for the new seal to seal up on. So we'll do that with a little bit of the emery cloth that I used earlier with the water pump. We'll clean this up and then we'll put it all back together. Alrighty, there we go. We're all back together. All right. So now we got this back together. We have our water pump back together. So now what we want to do is want to put the airbox back in, get all of that squared away. You have to let the RTV sealant on the water pump, sit for a while so that it will actually it'll actually dry up and seal. So you don't want to start the car right away. You want to give it a couple hours before you actually do that, right? So we'll put it all back together, and then in a couple hours we'll come back here, and then what we'll do is we'll fill everything back up. We'll fill our coolant tank back up, and then when we fill up the coolant tank, we'll run the engine and we'll burp the system. Now we're all back together, and it's been a little bit, so I think we're safe at this point to fill up the overflow and let the car run. What you want to do is let it run with the heat on, so it circulates all the coolant through the heater core, through the rest of the engine, and then you could top off as needed, and should be good to go after that. So I hope that helped you out. I'm going to put this repair probably at about a knuckle buster score of about a 6 or 7, only because if you have bigger hands, kind of like I do, there's some tight spaces. You're going to end up getting some scrapes and scratches. The thermostat housing with all the stuff that's in the way to get to that lower bolt, it's pretty tight in there. And then obviously on the other side where the water pump is, getting to the belt, getting that off, that's obviously, pretty tight spot there too. But overall, there's no special tools that you need. You should be able to get in there, get this thing out without, any kind of issues, and hopefully it resolves your problems. So do me a favor, if you like the content, give me a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. I hope everybody's staying safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video.